I'm Leah Lane, an award-winning travel writer and author of Places I Remember, Tales, Truths, Delights from 100 Countries. On this podcast, we share conversations with travelers about fascinating destinations and memorable experiences around the world. On this special edition, our annual year-end episode, I hope we inspire you to listen or re-listen to the episodes that have interested you in 2025. And don't forget, you can always dig deep into our archive of over 120 episodes, all about travel. But right now, let's listen to some favorite bits of this past year's episodes. In episode 113, we talk about the watery pleasures of upstate New York, including the famous Erie Canal. East-west between the Hudson River and Lake Erie is 339 miles long from Albany to Buffalo. Completed in 1825, the canal was the first navigable waterway connecting the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes, and it vastly reduced the costs of transporting people and goods across the Appalachians for about a century until the railroads and the highways took over. The Capital District, where the canal begins, is in and around Albany, New York. Besides the impressive government buildings, the area still has many architectural and historical reminders that it was first settled by the Dutch in the early 17th century and came under English control in 1664. Here's an interesting fact. Almost every major city in New York falls along the trade route established by the Hudson River and along the Erie Canal, from New York City to Albany to Schenectady, Utica, and Syracuse, to Rochester and Buffalo, and nearly 80% of upstate New York's population lives within 25 miles of the Erie Canal. You can find out more about the canal in Syracuse. There's a building called the Waylock Building dating from 1850, and there's lots of information there to give you a real heads up on this wonderful American creation. In episode 114, Dr. Lori Marker, founder of the Cheetah Conservation Fund, shares her favorite sites in Namibia, Africa, where she lives. The most famous national park, Etosha, is in northwestern Namibia, one of the largest national parks in Africa, and it was proclaimed a game reserve in 1907. What animals will you find at Etosha?
Oh, Etosha is just so beautiful. Again, it's a very arid landscape, and so the animals are covering very vast areas, but we have huge herds of elephants. Our elephants also go into areas near the coast, which are called desert elephants. So again, we've got some very specialized species. Within the park, you can see rhinos and giraffe, all the wildlife species from oryx and hartebeest, springbok everywhere that are bouncing everywhere. Lions, of course, hyena, very few cheetahs.
2 kinds of zebra, I read.
Mountain zebra and there are plain zebras. Most people see the plain zebra. The mountain zebra are much more rare, and they're also very shy in many areas that are not necessarily open to the public, but they're mountainous. Etosha is just incredible for the amount of wildlife. You go to these water points. It's a very arid land, and so the water points, the wildlife congregates in. It's amazing, the kinds of species, the numbers of species, all living there together. And then the predators, and of course, everybody likes those as well.
Right. There are many other attractions to visit. I would just include 2 that I think are special. Fish River Canyon. It's the largest canyon in Africa and the world's second largest canyon. It's about 60 million years old. It was formed when South America and Africa separated. It's 100 miles long, a challenging hike. Have you done it?
I have not done it. I've been to the rim and I've looked over.
Very beautiful.
It's a very challenging hike, actually.
It is very challenging.
So people who have that kind of adventure, definitely.
Good for them. Then there's Coleman Scope Ghost Town. And this ghost town is different from what you usually think of because it's filled with sand. The desert has taken it over since about 1956 when it was abandoned as a former diamond mining town. Have you been there?
I've been there. And you know what? There's a lot of hyenas that like to live in and out of there too. And jackals. They're more nocturnal, but it's just an amazing place to take pictures. Of course, when you come to Namibia, bring your camera. But Namibia is a huge country. An area that you've missed, and I'm not sure if you've been there, has been Domra land.
Yes.
Where the rock etchings are. Triflefontaine, one of my favorite places in the entire world. It's a World Heritage Site, so it's been developed with walkways, fortunately, to protect these amazing rock etchings that are at least 5,000 years old, but they're etched in. And within there, there's also areas where there are rock paintings. But this area is etched, and they are just incredible, from ostriches and elephants and rhinos and giraffe, cheetah, kudu, antelope. They're all on these rocks that are amazing. It's like going to a wildlife church, I'm going to say, outdoor, incredible art that's there.
In episode 115, Thatcher Baker Briggs, founder of Thatcher's Wine in LA, talks of a meal he can't forget near one of the Spanish vineyards in Europe.
4 or 5 years ago, when we were starting this import company, there was one particular producer that I had tasted the wines of and fell in love with. And we were talking for years and years and years. And he had an importer in the US already. So unfortunately, we couldn't work together. Years later, some things changed. And the reason why on this trip we ended up in Alicante was for this producer, as I mentioned. So we got a call from him, and we're in Champagne. We have a flight booked out of Paris. We're supposed to leave. He says, oh, I decided to make a change. And okay, so we're like, all right, we'll be there tomorrow. It turns out I left my wallet at the hotel and we were rushing and didn't know how to get there. And so we had to ship my wallet and then it got missed. And so we kept getting pushed and we ended up somehow driving super fast, made it to the airport in Paris, flew to Spain, went to go see him. And it was this really amazing experience where we were all together. And he says to us, hey, do you want to go eat the best rice in the world? And I said, well, of course.
Sure.
After this crazy travel period and tasting a bunch of wine, we jump in his little car, and it's like a winery car. It's very small. And we're driving down this road, and we're driving for probably an hour and a half into the desert. And we have no idea where we're going. We get to this tiny restaurant in the middle of nowhere and we walk in and he's like, this is the place. And it's this absolutely incredible restaurant. The chef learned from this master of paella, if you will. They cook everything over the vines of grapes, which is really incredible. And they do the traditional Alicante style, which is rabbit and snails, which is a type of paella that I've never heard of before. And we're sitting there and they bring us into the kitchen. And it's this really special thing because they add just the perfect amount of vines of grapes into the fire. And once you add the vines and you add the broth, if you will, to your rice, you can never add more fire and you can never add more liquid. So you basically have this one shot, this one chance. There's no scales, there's no recipes. It's just the feeling of the chef. And so we're sitting there and we're like, wow, we've been traveling for 20 days. We rushed, we drove about 200 kilometers an hour to make it to the airport. Now, all of a sudden, we're sitting here in this kitchen in the middle of nowhere with a winemaker that I've been wanting to spend time with for years and years and years. And then we eat this paella, and it was really one of the greatest foods that I've ever eaten in my life. And so, if you ever find yourself in Alicante, there's a restaurant called Restaurant Elias, Elias. And I highly recommend it. It's worth any journey as somebody that traveled about 1,000 kilometers.
Sarah Thompson, the founder of Luxima Travel, shares her personal experiences and expert knowledge of Sorrento near the gorgeous Amalfi Coast in Italy in episode 116.
Sorrento is absolutely beautiful. I think it's one of the best gems, even though it's technically not the Amalfi Coast, it is the Sorrento coast, but it's absolutely lovely because there's the historical town of Sorrento has all these beautiful alleyways. It's very easy to navigate, very centralized too, in between Naples, the city, Capri, the island, and then of course the Amalfi Coast. It's really accessible and it's so beautiful. Of course, Sorrento is super, super famous for its lemons. There's amazing lemon gardens in the area and in neighboring towns like Meta, Sant'Agnello, Piano di Sorrento, and that whole peninsula is really, really beautiful.
And lemons become limoncello, which is also famous, the magnificent after-dinner drink, which you find all around. I loved walking in Sorrento because it was flat. And when you are in the Amalfi Coast, you're not going to have a lot of flat. So it's a perfect place to stroll. People shop in the evening. All the craftsmen are out doing wood inlay, and it's just lovely. And the villas there that are along the cliffs are gorgeous. Many of them hotels now.
Many of them are hotels, yeah, and they have their own beach clubs there. They're so beautiful, really relaxing. Some of the historical hotels there as well. What you mentioned about Sorrento being flat is because it's so accessible, great town to kind of centralize yourself in. And there's even an elevator to take you down to the port.
Absolutely. You go down there and you can go to Capri and the other islands of Procida and Ischia. They're gorgeous. You can go from many areas along the Amalfi Coast, and that's Sorrento is one of them. It's a lovely port there. I think it's an underrated place. I think when everyone goes to the Amalfi Coast, Sorrento is really the gateway. So try to include that. And again, you can just walk along the hotels and go in the lobbies and look at these grand old hotels. It's a wonderful thing to do there.
One of my favorite things to do, actually, if you're not staying at those beautiful 5-star luxury hotels along the cliffside, you can actually go inside them and just mention you're going to the terrace bar. They have all these beautiful terraces, terrazza, with usually a cocktail bar, which you can grab an aperitif to watch the sunset, which is stunning because from Sorrento Coast, you see the full sunset over the horizon, while the Amalfi Coast, you don't.
Excellent. In episode 117, Frank Marini and Gareth Jones, executives at Rail Bookers, talk about personal memories of train travels. Well, the name of the podcast is Places I Remember. So would you please each share a personal memory of your train travels? I think you probably had some of the best anywhere. Who wants to go first? Frank?
There's been so many of them, and I've been very lucky. Last year, my wife and I got a chance to do the Canadian from Vancouver right to Toronto. And that, a 4-night, 4-day trip on the train. And we were lucky enough to go into prestige class. But the thing that really surprised us both, and we've been on a number of different trains, the amount of wildlife we saw along the way. And
what did you see? I'm curious.
We saw everything from buffalo, bald eagles, wild goats. I mean, all along the way, the amount of wildlife, and then the terrain completely different. So coming out of Vancouver to the mountains of the Rockies, to the plains of Saskatchewan, to coming into Ontario and the beautiful forests coming through and the deer, we were just blown away how beautiful. And there's just something very special on, we're early morning risers having coffee in the observation car while seeing all the wildlife with the sunrise. Oddly enough, it went by very fast.
Did you stay at some of those fabulous lodges that were built so long ago?
I have in the past. On both ends, we stayed in the Fairmont. Unbelievable.
Nice to hear. Closer to home for some listeners. It sounds great. What about you, Gareth?
I think I would be in trouble if I didn't say the Bernina Express in Switzerland. So 16 years ago, it's the train journey that I met my wife on board. It's got a special place in my heart. I can't say it's an experience that everyone's going to have on the train. So she had ordered a coffee and she was sat over from me, but then she'd realized she didn't have any money to pay for the coffee. So I stepped in and bought her a coffee. But there we go. So we enjoyed coming over the Landwasser Viaduct, will always have a place in my heart.
In episode 118, Arturo Sanchez, head concierge of Andes Mexico City Condesa Hotel, shares his perspective on his magnificent city and talks about one of his favorite pastimes, Mexican wrestling.
It's one of the shows. I had 2 daughters, and I try to go with the Mexican wrestling as many times as we can because they love it right there. You had to scream, you had to make noise, you had to clap because it's the place to enjoy with the family, with the friends. And I don't know why, in the arena next to our guests, and was really fun because that was just like a biggest family enjoying that. Make after that, okay, let's go to eat some tacos to share the experience, and that is really, really good.
Sounds great. When you say it's acrobatic, how much more acrobatic is it than what I would think of wrestling? Do they dance around or do flips or what?
Feel like a circus. Acrobatic, the people flying next to the roads and next to the ring right there. Because right here in Mexican wrestling, we have like the good side and the bad side that we call the rudos and the técnicos. Choose your side. Doesn't matter. You have to choose your side. And right there, everybody gonna make noise and support the team.
In episode 119, Angela Caratanuto, founder of Live Tours, shares his love of the great Catalan city of Barcelona on the Spanish Mediterranean. Here he talks about some of the city's festivals.
Barcelona is a big party city in general. It's a party city for all ages. traveling for the festivals is definitely a must-do. It can be very, very crowded. And the biggest events are in the September festival, which is about a week long, and it's concerts, it's parades. The highlight of it, which happens in the middle of the Gothic Quarter, is what the Catalonians calls the castellers, which is these human-built towers I'm sure people have seen pictures of. Challenge where people start climbing on each other and try and build the tallest human tower in the square. The entire festival is called La Messe, and it happens in September. Another one, which is in honor of the patron saint of Barcelona, is St. Jordi's Day, which happens in April. It's sort of like the Catalonian versions of Valentine's Day. But the difference really is that instead of taking out somebody or your second half, your better half, or gifting something, you generally exchange books and roses.
Oh,
And yeah, so the city decks out for St. Jordi, and it fills out with flower stands, book stalls. All the shops sell you a version of the other. It's really unique. Then there's various music festivals. Two that I would recommend are the Primavera Sound and the Sonar Festival. Huge international music festivals. Big names if you're interested in just like Rolling Stones and kind of thing, or up and coming artists. So really, you're going to have 4 or 5 festivals to choose.
in episode 120, Tano and Nicole, founders of Bono Events International, guide us through the gorgeous Italian heartland of Tuscany and Umbria, where they live, and focus about the hilltop town of Assisi in Umbria.
Assisi is such an important place for people to visit because of its religious history. St. Francis of Assisi is probably the most well-known saint in the world. The basilica is incredible with some masterpieces from the medieval period, from Giotto, among others. And the double basilica is really unique to see. And the entire town has been born out of the cult of St. Francis. It has dozens of churches, palaces, even St. Clare and all her orders are in Assisi. Okay. Even down valley, you can visit the original Porziuncola, the house that he built with his own hands, that they built this mega church on top of now. So you see this tiny little home that he built with his hands, and they built this enormous cathedral over with this massive dome that towers the region. You can get lost in the woods of St. Francis, where he used to walk around and allegedly speak to animals behind Assisi. Right. So it really is an enchanting place to visit. Of course, you have to be careful to make sure you're not going during a religious holiday or a Jubilee event, because you could be stuck waiting for hours to move around.
Bob Eckstein is a cartoonist for The New Yorker and a New York Times best-selling author. In episode 121, he shares some of his quirky interests and his travels to find out about them.
Go to Bruges. And would you agree it's one of the most beautiful places?
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend getting there by train. I think it's really romantic to go to those train stations in Belgium. I love Brussels. And Brussels, I was researching the snowman because there's a pivotal part of the snowman's history that takes place in that region. So that's how I got a chance to discover Bruges for myself. I need to go back to Normandy, where there is an old-fashioned miniature golf course that is, instead of artificial turf, the course is made up of red clay, like the French Open. And it's such a special miniature golf course. And that's a little gem to recommend.
Absolutely. I've never heard of that one. You find the most interesting things. Margie Goldsmith, award-winning travel and culture writer, is the author of Becoming a Badass, From Fearful to Fierce. She learned the blues harp late in life and connects her passion for music to travel. In episode 122, she plays us a musical example.
I bring my harmonica every place I go, and I get in touch with Hohner Music, and I ask them to send me 30 harmonicas. And when I'm in third world countries like Mongolia or Papua New Guinea or Myanmar, I ask to be put in touch with the 3rd or 4th grade class, because that's when they're really getting into it. And I give them each a harmonica, and I teach them how to blow in and blow out, and they're joyful. And once when I was with the Batwi pygmies, I'm having a blank on it, was somewhere in Uganda, I had given the kids the harmonicas the day before. And the next day we were leaving, and I had left my little cabin, and I was walking towards the place where you put your suitcase, and I hear this harmonica in the forest. and I followed the little path, and there's a little 8-year-old boy who's gotten a harmonica, big grin on his face, playing, and it just touched me. It was so moving because you can change a person's life by bringing music into it, and they have nothing. They will play with stones the way we play with toys as
Right,
children.
exactly. This is a perfect time for you to perhaps play us something as we end this convo. Will you
Okay,
riff a bit?
as this has been travel, I figured I'd do a very international song.
In episode 123, Jelani Warsi shares insights about his home country of India. His discussion of the Taj Mahal offers the kind of insider tip that makes travel experiences more special.
You can't do the Taj Mahal without mentioning the Agra fort. After the fall of Shah Jahan, his own son rebelled against him and kept him under house arrest. And Shah Jahan asked him to put him in the Agra fort because there's a beautiful view of the Taj Mahal from there. That's how much he loved his wife. The son honored his request and he put him in a room. So you could go there if you go on a guided tour, you can find it by yourself. There is a room which has a window looking out at the Taj Mahal from there. Shah Jahan would position his bed there. He would sleep. First thing in the morning, he would look at the Taj Mahal.
Wow. Lovely to go in that room and think of him doing that.
Right. But it's actually even more interesting. So when he was in bed, when he went to bed and he slept, he put a broken piece of mirror. It was stuck in the wall. When he was lying in his bed, he was about to fall asleep. He would see an image of the Taj Mahal in the mirror.
Wow.
The tour guide bring like a little piece of mirror. They put it at the wall, and then you could see centuries old red sandstone fortress that was once the imperial city for a succession of Mughal rulers.
Thanks to all our guests who've shared their love of travel with us this past year. And thank you, as always, for listening to and following Places I Remember. And don't forget, select podcast episodes are now on YouTube with added graphics and video. Look for these at our YouTube channel, Places I Remember, Travel Talk with Leah Lane. Thanks for listening to our award-winning podcast. We've recorded over 100 episodes of Places I Remember, so follow us on any podcast app. And new monthly episodes are also on YouTube with gorgeous video. My book, Places I Remember, is available in print and Kindle, and I read the audio version. Follow my travel writing at Forbes.com. Contact me at the links in the show notes or on my website, placesirememberlealane.com, and keep making your own travel memories.